Hello, I'm Georgie, this is Casey, and we are starting our podcast journey.
We are indeed. Talk the hind leg off a horse, something we can do very well.
Well, indeed, that has been our experience over the last couple of years. We've known each other.
Exactly, yeah. I think there's been an awful lot of standing and chatting when we probably should have been doing something more constructive, but never mind, it was all good. So
Absolutely.
We thought, why not put it into a podcast and put it into a YouTube channel, and and everyone can be part of our conversations.
And that's pretty much where it grew from organically, wasn't it? We would sit there and talk about our experiences as professionals in the industry, and also our frustrations with the industry.
Indeed, yeah.
And realise that the more the other professionals you talk to, and the other equestrians within the industry you talk to, or the sport in general, you realise that they're frustrations that are shared by many people. So if we can
think so. I think if we can help, and if we can educate people a bit, and we can, by all means, we're not going to say that we have all the answers, or that we know everything about the horse industry, because we don't, and we are still learning as much as anyone else.
Absolutely.
But we've both been doing it long enough to have experienced a lot.
Absolutely.
And learn a lot about the industry and the equestrian world, really, not just the professional industry, but the equestrian world in different ways, and what's good about it, what's bad about it, what we like, what we don't like.
Absolutely. And what I think is really interesting for us is that, I mean, I find it fascinating, as I've come from a very holistic kind of point of view. I've gone a bit alternative, if you like.
A bit hippie.
I've been a bit hippie about my horse ownership over the years, and there were times where I'm anti-medication and treating horses, and it's all about the training and the rehab, and and making sure horses have enough turnout, blah blah blah. So, but you've come from.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've come from a very different. Well, I mean, I've come from a route of anything from working in dealing yards as a kid to working in racing, hunting, show jumping, dressage, eventing, all across the board. So it's been a fairly well-rounded career, I suppose. But there's been, it's probably a very different point of view on what you're doing with the horses, how you're training them, why we're training them like we are, and what we need to do to keep them happy and comfortable, and on track for the job that we intend them for.
Absolutely. But what I also find interesting is that we have so many crossovers in what we agree from very different perspectives.
Yeah.
But that when you're looking for the best for a horse, actually those things very much can cross over, whether it's for a competitive environment or just keeping
general happiness and well-being of the horses at the end of the day. And in the end, even the competition horses, first and foremost, should be, are they happy, are they healthy, are they enjoying the job they're doing, and whether that be dressage, eventing, show jumping. I mean, we hope we can talk about all these other different disciplines, don't we?
Yes.
So we can do things that we don't know about, Western riding.
Absolutely.
And vaulting and all of these polo, all these other disciplines that aren't anything that we would necessarily know anything about. But that's where we hope to get some good, knowledgeable and experienced people to talk, so we can get their point of view, get their experiences, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot along the way. Well,
absolutely. I mean, let's hope so. I mean, there is, like you just said, or you just mentioned, but a few of the sports that are involved within the equestrian world, and it's such a diverse group of people, from leaders of the world to Karen, who hacks Bob the Cob down the road once a month, or it's such a varied ownership.
I think the thing is, there's no such thing as sort of well, I suppose you could say there's a class status in the equestrian world, but nevertheless, it doesn't matter if you are born with a silver spoon in your mouth and you can afford these lovely flash horses, or whether you just enjoy horses, you have your horse that you hack out and you enjoy and you do bits with, and that's fine.
I think that's a really good point, actually, and you will realise watching that I Well, both of us really are absolutely capable of going off of various tangents. So if we lose you, we'll try not to, but I apologise in advance. I can't remember what I was going to say now. What I was going to say. That's what I was going to say.
As well.
Yeah, it does. Is that just because you've got that diversity of horse ownership and horse environments of which horses are kept in, doesn't mean that the knowledge should be scarce to any one person. You know, one of the biggest things I see as a saddle fitter in the industry is that I get a lot of people say to me, oh, you know, but I'm just a novice, so that doesn't really apply to me, or, you know, and it can be some really quite important welfare information.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've personally, I think I see that more and more nowadays than in the past. Horse owners who, you know, they think they're doing their best, but actually they are a bit limited on what they know. And because nowadays, you know, don't get me wrong, horses is an expensive sport. Whether you do it as an amateur, as a professional, whether you're doing it, you know, just as a, you know, hobby hacking out, it's still got an expense to it. But I think people think, as you say, you know, oh, well, I only hack down the road, you know, do I need a saddle fitter? Do I need a, you know, a farrier that makes sure my horse's feet are balanced? Do I need to have my horse physio? Do you know, all these things that, you know, we would do without thinking with the competition horses. But actually, even if you're just hacking a horse down the road and you want it to be happy and healthy and comfortable, you've still got to know about these things.
Absolutely.
You know, to a degree.
Absolutely. Okay, see, because I have only known you for the last, 2 years?
Yeah, probably
professionally.
About 2 years,
and since I've known you, you've been a dressage rider.
Yeah.
But I know that you were an eventer.
Yeah, I mean, I my first love was eventing.
Okay.
I've competed in the dressage, well, most of my professional life as well, because I did the British Dressage talent spotting when I was 19.
Okay.
Having never really done dressage. And to be honest, I mean, dressage was a mean to an end because I had to do it for the eventing. So, but it turned out I was quite good at it, and I was second at the talent spotting. By a tiny margin, which was frustrating, but to be honest, I mean, I was there being sat on a schoolmaster horse that it could do tempi changes and things, and I'd never done tempi changes before. I just, you know, got on my horses and rode them. So I've always, and I got more into the dressage, but fundamentally was mainly the eventing. So I've had, you know, I've had a lot of fun. I've competed to 4-star. I've had a range of horses. You would never go into my yard and look around the horses and think, oh, well, they have a type, because I have evented all kinds of things, different, you know, breeding, different size, different temperaments. Usually I've ended up with the more tricky horses.
Okay.
I've had quite a few that wouldn't have been the most straightforward.
Why do you think that is?
Probably because I'm stupid enough to ride them, probably. So yeah, I think probably because a lot of what I've done alongside the eventing is backing horses and starting young horses and producing young horses. And so I think when people have had horses that have been difficult and they haven't really known what to do with them, people have said, oh, give Casey a ring, you know, he might be able to help. So I've ended up with horses that have come sometimes that have got a few issues, or, you know, or sometimes it's just I had them and I backed them and the owner decided they wanted me to compete them. So, you know, and I've had some lovely horses over the years. I've had some not so lovely horses over the years. I've had a lot of horses over the years who, looking back, knowing now what I know about horses and how they behave and the different ailments that they are struck down with quite frequently, I think I definitely think you know, there are horses in the past where I think back and I think, oh, I know what was wrong with you. At the time,
amen,
it was just, well, it's naughty. But of course, you know, things have changed.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another big point that both of us are quite passionate about, is that things change, and how we think about horses and what we know about horses, it's all changed so much. And unless you're open to learning and listening to different people's point of view and, you know, experiencing different things and trying different things, you know, and I think, you know, for me, a lot of the you know, the channel that we've set up, a lot of it, I think, as we've spoken about, is people needing to be horsemen, you know, and horsewomen, you know, not being just someone that owns a horse. And actually there is a lot more to owning a horse and being a horse person than just owning one. So, you know, and there's nothing wrong with not knowing a lot. You can always learn. You can not know a lot but have your horse with a professional rider, and they need to know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And you accept you don't, but you let a professional have your horse and they do know what they're doing. Yeah, so I did have a little spin around an event last year, which was the first time in 3 years. I hadn't evented for 3 years before I did that. It was only a Go 90, a little Downham, but it was fun. I still love to jump. I still do jump. I still coach a lot of, you know, jumping and eventing, and as well as the dressage. But yeah, I had a bit of a change of scene, and I've sort of cut back on numbers, mainly focusing on the dressage, and yeah, it's working out okay.
Good.
So, indeed.
Pleased to hear it.
Indeed. So now we're about to talk about you.
Me, I mean, I guess so I'm a saddle fitter. I've been a professional saddle fitter for coming up to 20 years now, around 20 years. Started part-time, built it up, blah, blah, blah. But I come from definitely more that there's something wrong with the horse, let's figure it out, rather than trying to train it. So, and that was mainly because I didn't come from a very affluent background at all. And so my parents couldn't afford to buy me a horse. So the first horse I got, which still makes me laugh, was actually a foal. I bought myself a foal at the age of 17.
As you do.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
That's what I could afford. So that's what I got.
Okay.
And he taught me a massive amount. A massive amount.
It's probably a slight baptism of fire. Really.
Absolutely, yeah. Green on green definitely makes black and blue.
Yeah, I did it. My second horse, I was 13 and it had been broken in 3 weeks.
Wow.
For some reason, I mean, with a non-horsey parent, then you think, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
and,
well, same here.
It certainly was a learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my parents aren't horsey in the slightest. Farmers. So we had the land, which always annoyed me so much. We had the land, but I wasn't allowed the pony. But anyway, I got the pony, and then I actually ended up in the kind of natural horsemanship world because they were the friendliest bunch that I wasn't really intimidated by, to be honest with you, because I was one of those people going, I don't know what I'm doing.
There was less judgment.
Absolutely, and it was a structured environment, so there was like this pathway to follow, that gave you an education format that you could follow with ease. And it was because everybody kind of viewed themselves as these happy hackers, and you know, they all had problem horses, but they wanted to develop their partnership with their horses. So it was a much more I found, because I wasn't involved in competitive riding. This was kind of an environment that I could be supported without feeling judged. And I'm still good friends with most of those people that I started that journey with. But it led me into this, well, actually, there's something causing this behaviour. There's something, I want to know what's causing this behaviour. So, you know, I've done this, which is Saddle Fit was a big proponent to all of the horses that I had were problematic. Because I ended up in the North Trail horsemanship, so sorry, I kind of missed a step. I ended up taking on a lot of free horses.
Ones that nobody wants.
Absolutely. And I had success with pretty much most of them of rehabbing them into horses that then went on to have normal lives, because I figured out what their problem was, what their pathology was, what their issue was causing them to react like that in the first place. And I've done various other courses, but I don't want to talk too much about myself because I think we can cover a little bit more detail as we go along. But
I think so, Indeed.
But I think it's I'm just so relieved to have found somebody that can, in yourself, because I have got to a point in my life now where I want to learn more about the riding side of things.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that you're going to help me with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, well, and I think that's the thing there. But I think really, regardless what angle you come from, I think having knowledge about other things.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I know lots about natural horsemanship, but I do know about horsemanship. Mm-hmm. So I know about,
absolutely,
you know, I mean, especially having backed a lot of horses, know about, you know, how horses behave. I like to think that I can usually work out how a horse is thinking in terms of, you know, is it scared? Is it just not understanding?
Yeah.
Is it being a bit stroppy?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of, I think, people struggling to sometimes read what a horse is trying to tell them. And at the end of the day, that's, as my understanding is, the main thing about the natural horsemanship is it's more about trying to read what the horse is trying to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that still transfers into competition horses.
Absolutely. And I think you've touched on a really good point there, and something we've discussed quite a lot, obviously, is that a lot of this, you know, our knowledge has come in the horse world from people that used to work around horses on a daily basis and be around them and, you know, farm. I mean, predominantly we're a nation that came from agriculture. Horses were purely there for our farming. Yeah. And then the farmer would take the horse hunting at the weekends, and we've become very much a traditional.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and there's many horses, especially in the eventing world. You know, now it is a lot more that eventers are specifically bought for eventers, and that's the job they do. But I mean, there was plenty of horses that, you know, as you say, you know, Dad would hunt it all season, and then one of the kids would take it eventing in the summer, you know, or his wife would take it eventing in the summer. There was a lot of hunters that would go eventing in the early days, but I think, you know, the sport's evolved and it's changed, and that's not so much the case. But
and I think you know, horses became I don't know if I want to say. A pleasure activity for every person, that sometimes the horsemanship knowledge that those people that worked with those animals had from a young age is kind of getting lost.
Yeah, well, I think to me that I think is you know, it's quite apparent. I mean, I do a lot of coaching now. That's mainly what I do, and I find the number of times...
The sun is shining on us.
It is, yeah. Thank God. Although we shouldn't complain, it's been lovely weather lately. So I think there's been several cases where I've had somebody come to me with a horse with a problem with, I don't know, maybe it's jumping a ditch, you know, or something that it doesn't like, a filler or something like that. And, you know, I've had the people that have come who are saying, you know, oh, my horse is being really naughty about a ditch or a filler or whatever it is that it doesn't want to do. And I look at it and I don't think it's being naughty. I think it just doesn't understand.
Yeah.
So then that's a case of teaching the horse what it is. It doesn't need to be scared of it, and, you know, how to go about training the horse to jump what it is you want them to jump.
Yeah.
No different to training to do anything. But then there are other people who come who are insistent that the horse is terrified. It's not always the case. And sometimes it's more the rider's a bit terrified. And horses are incredibly perceptive.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you don't want to do it, they know.
Way more intelligent than I think a lot more people give them credit for.
I have trained many people whose horses have them very well schooled. And they the horses say, I want to do that now, and the owners go, okay, we'll do that now. Sort of the balance isn't quite right.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Especially if you want to go and do a dressage test or something, you know, you do at least need to be able to do the movements as and when you want them. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's become more apparent how people don't necessarily understand. That said, things have moved on from, you know, I mean, even really when I was younger, and certainly before that, if a horse didn't want to do something, it was, oh, well, give it a whack, you know, and you know, that's what people knew at the time.
Yeah.
And they felt that was okay.
Yeah.
They were like, well, if it doesn't do something, you give it a whack, and then it does it.
Absolutely.
Now we understand better.
Yeah.
So we're more educated. We understand actually horses, you know, they are more intelligent than people often think. And if we can kind of tap into their natural kind of way of thinking and their instincts, they're a lot easier to train.
Absolutely. I think that touches really well on kind of leading to where we're actually going before we get carried away just chatting amongst ourselves. Yeah. Because so we want to bring in as many people as we can is the plan, isn't it?
But not necessarily people you may have ever heard of.
No.
So people who are, you know, all walks of the horse world. So whether it be somebody who just hacks on the weekend, or someone who is a groom or a rider or a coach, or anybody and everybody, as well as, you know, all the rest of the people who we will talk about in one of the episodes coming up with the physios and vets and farriers and things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of different people we want to invite to talk. And as I say, we don't want to just sort of go down the mainstream. Let's try and get the most well-known riders.
No, absolutely.
You know, we'll get people that are in the sport, in the industry, in the horse world, in whatever capacity.
With this series, our intention is not to teach you or tell you the rights or the wrongs or how you should be doing something. More to offer ideas and different perspectives. Yeah,
I think that's fair, and I think. You know, give you just different ways of thinking about things, and with a bit of luck there will be lots of juicy bits of information that you can take and you can use on your own horses and expand your knowledge, really, at the same time we are going to expand ours.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's something that we just want to help. We just want to help people be able to help their horses.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you listeners and viewers will take any of advice and share it along the way with other people that you know, and whatever you learn from this, but also maybe even make suggestions of who you want us to speak to.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we'd love it if you could you know, share your experiences, share your thoughts on what we've been talking about, and if there is anything specific you want us to try and cover, we'll do our best. Yeah. We'll try and give it a go. See where it leads us.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that you'll have to, we'll have our tangents where things might go off in different directions.
Yeah, we love to go off on a tangent.
Well, it's all relative, isn't it? You know, when you're, you know, semi-intelligent, it's easy to see how the things all connect.
It is, yeah. And I think as well, when you're quite passionate about what you do,
absolutely,
and I mean both of us, our brains are like a quick fire round, aren't they? So they kind of, things pop in, you know, here, there and everywhere. So we could be sat there chatting 1 minute about a saddle and the next minute we're chatting about, I don't know, you know, what colour a horse is, or, you know, how it's shod or whatever, and it's kind of it all, but you know, it does all go together, and it's all, you know, we have fun. On our next episode, apparently I'm in the hot seat, so Georgie is going to be interrogating me and
make it sound way harder.
asking me questions about my life and my experiences, and a bit more about where I've come from. I think we both feel it's good for viewers and listeners to know our backgrounds, before we get too stuck into everybody else. And then
after that we'll talk about myself.
After that we'll talk about you.
And then hopefully we can start bringing some guests
bring some guests in.
If you want to reach out to us, then please do so. We have an email. It's talkthehindlegoffahorse@gmail.com. It's also on socials. We'll be on socials. So
social media.
Instagram, DM, Facebook.
Yeah. We can
TikTok.
TikTok, yeah. You can send us messages wherever you like, and we will do our best to get back to you.
Absolutely.
And even if you just ask a question, happy to help. If you want to ask us anything or request anybody, or or
or a subject. Or anything that
anything you want to talk about.
Anything really. Pretty open. We just want to cover as much information to help you guys as we possibly can.
Absolutely.